I said I would do this video weeks ago, but I'm a bit of an infrequent YouTuber. I'm a work in progress, and life happens, but if you couldn't tell by the outfit, you know what time it is. Let's talk Sailor Moon fashion and style. Hola, my name is X, and I like to experiment with fashion as well as talk about whatever the hell I want on social media whenever I feel like it. And in this video, like I said, we're going to talk Sailor Moon fashion and style. I would say that Sailor Moon is one of my top 3 favorite animes next to Yu Yu Hakusho and Rurouni Kenshin. I grew up with those, so near and dear to my heart. There's so much to uncover when it comes to the fashion and style and design within Sailor Moon. So let's go ahead and get to the agenda because I think you're gonna like it. So this video is gonna have like 4-ish parts. The first part is going to be in typical format where we do some quick context on Sailor Moon, as well as take a look at another YouTube channel's video on Sailor Moon fashion and style, and see what we can extract and see how we can use it as a springboard for the rest of the conversation in this video. Then we're going to just get into what I love about Sailor Moon fashion and what I think it represents, what I think it accomplishes, and I think what it still stands for even in the test of time. And then the third section is really layered, and I'm really excited about this part. We're going to take a look at each of the 5 main Sailor Scouts, or Sailor Guardians, and then we're going to look at their uniforms, their outfits, and see if we can identify and pin down their personal style, especially as it relates to their Jimmy Choo shoe collection that corresponds with those characters. And we're also going to try to put together outfits for these characters based on the shoes from the collection. So I feel like it's a really jam-packed third section. And then we're gonna run this out in the 4th-ish section by just taking a quick look at the rest of the Sailor Guardians and just kind of talk about their style, what I like, what it says to me. So what even is Sailor Moon? Well, it's a manga created by Naoko Takeuchi, following a teenage girl named Usagi as she discovers her celestial powers and destiny as a Sailor Guardian, alongside her other Sailor Guardian friends and teammates as they fight against alien forces that try to take human force, magical crystals, etc., etc. It's iconic and known for its transformations, as well as its fashion, obviously, which is why we're talking about it. It first debuted actually in Nakayoshi magazine in Japan in 1991, but it was so popular that it was able to be turned into its own standalone manga between the years of 1992 and 1997. And then it also translated over to the US as far as an anime adaptation between the years of 1995 and 2000. So it's a genuine 90s anime, and I'm a 90s kid, so that's why I love it so much. I did a smaller video on TikTok for Sailor Moon about a year ago, and when I was doing my research, I came upon this video by Modern Girls, which is absolutely incredible. It gave me such a great download and just such amazing context on the fashion and style in Sailor Moon, and just really some good background on Takeuchi as well, and just how passionate she was about fashion. So I really feel like that's a great starting point for anybody who wants to do a deeper dive into the fashion style within Sailor Moon. And I'm going to use it as a bit of a springboard for multiple points within this video and the conversation that I have around the topic. I like to comment on who's already done these videos because I like to be additive. I don't want to be repetitive. I don't want to be someone who just copies and pastes. And so what I really specifically want to extract from their video was the 4 main, I'd say, subgenres of style that are prominent within Sailor Moon, and that we're going to use to kind of pin down some sort of archetype for each of the Sailor Guardians' personal style. That includes office lady style, which is kind of just like a little bit of corporate. Then we have preppy, which is drawn from a little bit of that Western influence that was emerging in America at the time. Then we have otome, which was actually the springboard, as I've mentioned before, for Lolita fashion, which I think is really interesting. And then we have Shibuya casual, which is kind of pulling from French casual, but kind of synthesizing it with some of that Japanese streetwear. So bookmark those 4 sub-styles in your brain, because we're definitely going to be referencing them periodically throughout the remainder of the video. But one last piece of context on at least the formula for the anime episodes of Sailor Moon. They followed a very typical format, a little tropey in retrospect, where there's a typical villain of the day or villain of the week that is trying to do something to an innocent human, and of course the Sailor Guardians swoop in to rescue the day. We have maybe an appearance from a special character that's ancillary, just to spice things up and keep it fresh. But for the most part, it follows that formula, which could tend to lead towards a lot of filler content. But that's where I'm going to segue into why I love the fashion and style in Sailor Moon, because it honestly really does keep things fresh while providing an abundance of inspiration that is rooted in real-world style. Number one, I love the nearly infinite rotation of outfits that we are getting from the main characters within the series. Like I said, the format of Sailor Moon can probably feel a little stagnant at times and lend itself to a lot of filler content, but with an endless amount of net new outfits that the characters are rocking episode to episode, it makes the storyline and the series feel like it has some sort of momentum, and it is indeed moving in time, even if the episodes feel a little formulaic. You can easily scroll through Pinterest, Tumblr, Instagram, any sort of photo gallery dedicated to Sailor Moon fashion and style, and see unique outfits for all these different characters. And I think it just speaks to the passion that Takeuchi had for fashion, especially when we look at her background. Her trajectory was actually targeted towards medical and pharmacy based on what her family wanted, but her passion really shined through for art, beauty, fashion, and she naturally found her way into manga art, which, as we see, left an incredible impact. And did you know that she married the creator of Hunter x Hunter? Outside of the nearly infinite rotation of outfits from the characters, the format of the episodes also lends itself to highlighting some incredible villain outfits and costumes, which are great representations for luxury haute couture fashion. Takeuchi was very much inspired by fashion runways, and it seems like there were a few fashion houses that she particularly loved, including Chanel, Mugler, and Versace, but there are plenty others featured within the manga and anime, with these villains dressing in some incredible pieces, once in a lifetime, very classic. Not only did Modern Girls do a great job at highlighting a lot of the different references and examples, you can find so many articles that do the same, and you'd be amazed just how much luxury fashion made its way into the series. Which brings me to my next point with regard to the range of fashion, kind of springboarding off of the endless rotation. But I've mentioned in the past how I think a great sign of a true fashionista is the range of styles in which they're able to exercise and the variety of looks in which they're able to incorporate within their wardrobe. What I think is especially great about Sailor Moon fashion is the characters have their own personal style, very similar to Bleach, because as we saw from that manga art, there were a lot of different great outfits that the characters were featured in, but we can still see that there is some diversity within the different sub-styles and genres of fashion that the characters are wearing. They aren't just one note with regard to their style, they're dabbling in a whole bunch of different looks, which I think is not only a great way to style and experiment, like I've said, but it also just speaks to the freedom and iconicness of these characters. And the thing is, we're not even talking about like crazy range. We're not talking about like maybe say a Bayonetta range. We're talking about range within, as I highlighted, 4 distinct, most kind of macro styles, which highlights like another sub reason why I love Sailor Moon fashion, why I think it stands the test of time, is the simplicity involved. We're getting some unique, distinct outfits that do have color, pattern, shape, texture, but it still feels very practical. I'm a bit of a maximalist. Sometimes I like layers, I like lots of accessories, I like some camp here and there, obviously. But I do think that there is something to be said about a kind of core, timeless, classic style. I love how people say like, oh, back in the way past decades ago, it was such a simpler time. It's like, it was such a simpler time in the 90s. Look at the fashion. Their outfits aren't crazy. It is very simple and still very chic. And that's why I think it stands the test of time. And that's why I think that a lot of people still garner so much inspiration from these styles, because they're easily recreatable, but you know that there's a premium edge to it that doesn't feel too lazy. Which brings me into the last thing that I would say that I really love about Sailor Moon fashion and style, which is the gender fluidity that we see exercised among a few of the characters, actually. We obviously get a beautiful example of that in the form of Sailor Uranus, but even among the main 5 Sailor Scouts, their outfits aren't only always this super prissy, cutesy, typical anime teenage girl look. They're dabbling in some suits, they're dabbling in some pants, some blazers, oversized items. I love that they aren't boxed into just a set stereotypical style. I love that Takeuchi not only gave them some strong sassy looks to complement their personal style, but just also broke down the boundaries for how they could push their style even further. And I think it's just another great testament to why animes and mangas like Sailor Moon and even JoJo, which paralleled in timeline around the 90s, are such pioneers, because they just pushed down those boundaries and didn't make a big deal about it. It was casual, it was cool, and it felt normal because it is. All right, now that we got all of that context, all of those thoughts and feelings out of the way, let's get into the section that I'm actually most excited about, and which is why I created this video to begin with, which is to take a closer look at the main Sailor Guardians' personal style, how that relates to their corresponding Jimmy Choo shoe within the Sailor Moon collaboration collection, as well as just put together some outfits with those shoes in mind, just to equip you with some more outfit capabilities across a wider variety of styles. And let's go ahead and kick it off with Sailor Jupiter, also known as Makoto. Right off the bat, I'm gonna call her our Shibuya casual girl. I feel like out of all of the Guardians that she embodies just that kind of casual laid-back style the most, and we can even see that when we take a look at her shoe in a moment. I definitely feel like she pulls off that slack look, like slacks, maybe a casual shoe, and just like a shirt. Just like a regular casual shirt, maybe even a sleeveless top, which is, I think, the shirt that I would assign to her the most out of the others, just for that extra toughness, body confidence, and casualness. And she is a bit of a tomboy, and I think even self-proclaimed, which is why that street style, I think, also aligns with her character very well. We see that she would wear a baseball cap and Letterman's jacket. She's not afraid to kind of go to that extent of some masculine touch in her outfits, but she's also out here wearing a dress and looking just as feminine as the rest of the Guardians. So I really love that she has range very similar to Sailor Uranus in that regard. Now, when we take a look at her Jimmy Choo shoe, we can see that it's a bit of like a combat boot, a platform combat boot. I love that it's all green. I think you'd be surprised how hard it is to find solid color monochrome boots, especially in this style. So this is absolutely one of a kind. Like I was saying, she embodies that Shibuya casual street style a lot more than the other Guardians. And I think that having a combat style boot really reflects and emulates that a lot. I do think that the platform is a little much, but also I haven't quite seen a boot like this, with especially the heel being so distinguishable in the platform style. So that is a really nice touch. I saw some comments on TikTok that people thought it looked cheap. It's literally made out of quality materials. All you'd ever have to do is go to a website's description and just kind of see what it's made out of, and we can see that it's clearly made out of quality materials. There's also just some really interesting textural elements just to help the boot not feel completely flat. But even if it were, it still is a quality item, and I think could make for some very eye-catching outfits. So let's take a look at what that could include. I would say we can go two different routes. Let's maybe keep it super casual, but then dress it up. Like I said, I feel like Makoto wears a lot of slacks. So I think pairing this with just a pair of slacks, maybe a neutral brown, a black, could be a nice touch. And then, like I was saying as well, some sort of sleeveless top, a vest, I don't know, just maybe some sort of V-neck, sort of loose blouse, but I just feel like that could really add a nice complement, a nice touch of femininity, but still some toughness with the arms, because she is a tough girl. And I think that she should emulate some of that within her style. And maybe even just give it like a green jacket, maybe just like a green motorcycle jacket or something. That could be a nice touch. But if we wanted to be a little more cute, I don't know if I would go full alternative and do maybe some fishnet stockings. I think that doesn't necessarily fit Makoto style, but you could absolutely pull that off with these shoes. Then I would say maybe a pair of shorts, not too loose. You could do the loose wide leg shorts, but I wouldn't be afraid to go fitted there. And then I would say maybe do some sort of like turtleneck, maybe a crop turtleneck even. I'd say that kind of fits Makoto style. She could pull off a crop. And then, I don't know, maybe a vest on top of that. A little more playful, add some layers, but still plenty of body confidence. Now, I actually want to bring our boy Chiba into the mix, Tuxedo Mask, because I would buy these shoes. Again, clothes have no gender, and I feel like this and another one of the shoes lends itself to men or non-binary folks or whatever, if they want to kind of dabble within this collection. I think that Tuxedo Mask would also wear this really well with a pair of slacks. Although I could see him just wearing a nice regular pair of jeans, loose fit, straight leg jeans, maybe even a little bit of wide leg just to kind of wrap a little bit around that platform. And then I would say give him just some sort of t-shirt, maybe just a black tee, V-neck preferably, or you could just go the same shade of green as this boot. I would just maybe do a leather overshirt. It could be, if you do the black jacket or black shirt, then you could just do a green overshirt, leather-ish, preferably if you could find it to match the texture. Or if you're wearing the green t-shirt, then just get a black leather overshirt, which is a bit easier to find. Alrighty, that brings us into Minako, who is Sailor Venus. Let's talk about her style. We often see her wearing those kind of Mary Jane black flat shoes with some white socks, which I feel like is just really reflective of a typical schoolgirl, very preppy. And that's just a lot of her style anyway, with the bow in her hair, prissy dresses. She's also a Chanel girl. And I feel like that's also just a general preppy brand, even for luxury. So she's definitely pulling that off. I think it fits her really well. She's giving strong fashionista vibes. I don't know why she makes me think of like Sharpay Evans from High School Musical, but she does, maybe just with a little less of the meanness. But I think with plenty of the entitledness. But I think she's actually one of my favorite characters. I love her energy. I think she matches Sailor Moon and even Sailor Mars really well in terms of just like intensity and energy. And she was kind of actually low-key one of my favorites. But just like all the other girls, she is capable of wearing something a little more oversized, something a little more casual. I don't think she'd push as many boundaries as, say, a Makoto would, or maybe even some of the other Sailor Guardians, but she definitely has some fluidity within her range, and she isn't just one note preppy. And her shoe obviously does her justice and directly aligns with what she wears when she's in her Sailor Scout uniform. Having that extra little strap around the ankle is a nice touch of elegance to the shoe, which is what separates it and gives it a little more of that preppy vibe. I think it's interesting that out of the shoes, she's the only other one that has like those little gems on it. And I feel like that ties to the lore of the anime pretty well, where she is the leader of the kind of main Sailor Scouts or Guardians outside of Sailor Moon, who's ultimately like the princess or like the it girl. So I just think it's interesting how she has that extra little detail and decoration and glamour to her shoe, which I think definitely obviously does her justice. So what could we pair this with? Right off the bat, I would love to see this with a pair of maybe even knee-high white stockings, but ultimately a well-coordinated kind of peach or orangish suit, preferably a skirt and a blazer to match. It would be great if it had maybe some sort of grayish lines or some sort of like dots or texture to kind of tie back to the texture that her shoes are giving. But as far as maybe a more casual look, I would say you could just get away with a simple jean skirt, some ankle white socks, and maybe just like a white button down and a cardigan or a sweater over the shoulders tied like this. I think that would be a really good casual twist to this one. Next, this brings us into Amy's style, or Sailor Mercury's personal style. I would definitely say that she's an Otome girl. I'd say not only character-wise is she the softest, but I'd say style-wise she's also the softest. She has just a lot more of, I feel like, the frilliness to her looks. She has just more of like the bows, a little more of the lace. I just feel like that's just her kind of soft aesthetic. But as noted with Venus and Jupiter already, she isn't boxed into that. She can wear whatever she wants, even showing a little body confidence here and there. But overall, I just think her scholarly, meek, modest kind of frame and format is well captured in most of her outfits, and especially within the Otome aesthetic. And I feel like if she ever wanted to be a little more extravagant or flamboyant, she could easily lean into a more kind of softer, cutesy, fluffier side of the Lolita style as well. I would say that her Jimmy Choo boot is my favorite out of all of them. Not only do I just obviously love the color, but I just love the style of the boot. I have a lot of boots that follow this style actually, just not platform, but definitely plenty of heeled boots. One even in kind of a similar color, a little more pale. I also like that it isn't a full knee-high boot. I love that they gave her more of a cropped ankle boot, which I feel like is actually super practical and a very everyday boot and can easily elevate a number of different looks. And I just think that just the smoothness of the texture and the shape really emulates that kind of water or aquatic. As far as outfits are concerned, I would say for a casual one, this could work easily with just some like wider leg shorts. I would actually maybe go with a white pair of wider leg shorts, and then maybe just like a bluish belt to match. But you could also just maybe incorporate black or just another color altogether, or just a different shade of blue. And then I would maybe just do a jumper or just some sort of sweater, maybe with a collar hanging out at the top. Or you could also just do a cardigan, maybe just with a simple loose tee that kind of has a scoop neck, and then maybe just like a pearl necklace. That's really cute for casual. And then I would say, as far as something more dressy, I think that we should be a little more bold and go with a petticoat. A petticoat that matches the color of the boot. Give us a little bit of a ankle white sock as well. And then just give us a white button-down blouse, just to kind of keep it simple with maybe a bluish necklace. We don't have to get crazy. I feel like the petticoat is very fun. It isn't really that camp. It's actually pretty everyday if you style it right. And I think you could actually get a lot of great compliments. But we're not done, because like I said, I love this boot. And I feel like for those confident in their identity, masculine, non-binary, otherwise. So let's bring Chiba into the mix and see how he would style it. Number one, this could easily just be coordinated with a suit in general. A black suit, any sort of color suit really. Give us a light blue tie and a white button down. That feels kind of fun, I like that. But if you just wanted to keep it a little more simple, I wouldn't say go jean, I would just say go maybe like another slack, maybe just some khakis. And then yeah, just maybe give us another button down. Honestly, a Henley even could look good with this, but give us, I'd say maybe a jacket or maybe a puffer vest, just to give it a little extra touch of elevation, because we want to do the shoe justice. We don't necessarily want to be too casual or blasé with our look. Next we have Ray, and she was easy for me to pin down as our office lady or kind of more business lady attire and aesthetic. She definitely pulls that off, and I think just based on her background where she is a little more mysterious, alluring, has a bit of a bite and attitude towards her, I definitely feel like that's in alignment with her kind of personality and her style. She's often the one wearing a simple pump anyway, which is really like an office pump. And she often wears it with stockings, which I've said is just like such an easy way to elevate a look and make it look very sophisticated. Even in a teenage age, I feel like it's a great way to elevate it and give it a strong feminine look. And she actually reminds me of Lisa, because Lisa in JoJo was the same thing. She's like Lisa in the making. But as always, I'm gonna say with each of the characters, that's not to say she can't pull off other looks, which she does, but I don't feel that she has enough delicateness and softness to really be boxed into preppiness or a tome. And I don't think that she's so casual to the point where I feel like she'd be a full-blown Shibuya girl. And so of course, when we look at her shoe, it's that iconic red office pump, very bold. I feel like it just takes a confident, strong, bold woman to kind of pull this off in a very alluring way, in a way that really just kind of catches your eye and just shows that she's owning it. There's really nothing more to be said here. She wears shoes like this fits her. Obviously, this is the shoe that she wears, but I feel like this one has such an extra point to the end and the toe of the shoe, which is just extra sharp, extra sassy, extra fiery, which is everything that Sailor Mars is. Now, as far as an outfit, I would love to see this paired with a power suit. A power suit, black preferably. Just give us a black power suit, black blouse or button down. I mean, you're killing the game already right off the bat with that look. And then if you want to give it something a little more casual, but I still think we need to be elevated with our look, we do need to go with some black stockings, of course. And then I think even if it's maybe like a purple skirt and then do like a red turtleneck, I think that's very vibrant and very in your face. And I think that it incorporates another color outside of red, and the black stockings just kind of help break that up. And last but obviously not least, we have Usagi, or Sailor Moon herself. So initially I was like, Sailor Moon can pull off anything. Like, she is every aesthetic. But honestly, I think that she is really more so an otome slash preppy girl. I feel like when we look at her outfits, that is really the majority of what we're getting. I don't think she has enough edge or just kind of cool to be a full Shibuya girl. But I also don't think she takes herself as seriously and isn't as maybe sharp or buttoned up as an office lady or business lady. So I feel like she definitely has that softness, that cuteness, that blonde bubbliness of a preppy otome type of girl. But of course, she can still pull off a wide range of looks, but I definitely see her obviously leaning aggressively more at the feminine side. And she's so extra, and I think that her fashion does her justice. She often, I think, has these like cuter little symbols or even stronger statement pieces out of the other girls, just to really differentiate her and make sure that we know that she's that it girl. And given that she's so extra, loves to love, loves just to make a scene, it would make sense that she would have a boot that is extremely eye-catching. At first, I kind of wished that the boot was red, but I think that since we already have Sailor Mars's pump in red, that it's actually nice just to get a richer pink, a magenta, fuchsia type color, really just more so magenta. And similar to Sailor Venus, I love the little gems put on throughout. At first, I thought they were just white, in which case I was like, this looks a little bedazzled, which kind of makes it look a little cheap. But after revisiting the shoe, I see that it almost looks like a little bit of maybe ruby droplets, especially just with that kind of like crescent moon jeweled at the top of the boot. It's just so nice and definitely gives it enough of a luxurious touch, as well as texture, because otherwise that material almost looks like it's a sock boot, which is pretty thin and pretty flat. So definitely could use some dimension and texture that it was given. And I think a lot of people would look at a boot like this and just be like, oh my gosh, that's too much. I could never pull off a boot like that. I hate when people say things like that. And it's just like, anybody could pull off anything if you have the confidence. And I think why free-spirited, extra eccentric personalities like maybe Sei and Usagi are more inclined to maybe wear a boot like this is because when you're a free spirit, you're more inclined towards experimentation. You're just kind of like, sure, it could be fun, and you just want to explore and discover and see and be creative. And I feel like those types would be more inclined to wear this shoe and not be so concerned with how, if it's wearing them, how others people think about it. It's about how you feel about wearing it. And I feel like Usagi would be living in these boots. As far as styling them, one of the immediate looks that I just saw in my brain, which I think could be a nice sassier, darker kind of twist to an Usagi outfit, would be to pair this with some sort of like black leggings, preferably some sort of like faux leather material, or I guess maybe even PU, polyurethane, just to kind of really give some of that texture, but not too poly because we don't want that squeak. But then maybe just with like a nice sheer kind of black top, but with like a pink blazer kind of cropped jacket over top that for some layered dimension. I think that would look so sleek, but so sharp. And I love the complementary relationship between a pinkish color and black. But on the cutesier side, I think this could be paired really well with just maybe slightly pleated kind of dress. Maybe, I don't want to say completely spring dress. Maybe even a fitted dress would be better, but I could see this paired well with some sort of like even strapless dress. Then with like some sort of like maybe frilly pink shirt underneath that's like long sleeve and a button down, just to add a little more of that softness to it. Because I feel like just especially with a stiletto like this and just like the fitting of the shoe, you maybe need a little something to kind of tone it down and bring it a little more down to earth. So what did you think? Did you enjoy that part as much as I did? We're not done yet. We still have a little bit more to go. So let's just quickly share some thoughts on the rest of the Sailor Guardians and just acknowledge the styles that they do have to offer, because they definitely have plenty to offer outside of the core Sailor Guardians. With regard to Chibiusa and Sailor Saturn, I've expressed this with regard to Genshin. I'm not the biggest fan of the kitty characters. I mean, the outfits are cute, but I mean, when we're talking about like grown style and commentary, I just feel like it's not as conducive and accommodate as much of that dialogue. But I would say that between the two, Sailor Saturn definitely has this cute French girl, I would almost say maybe dark academia aesthetic that is very sharp, and I feel like also doesn't necessarily fit the typical Japanese schoolgirl, young girl anime thing aesthetic. So that it is refreshing to see. And I do just like that it is a darker aesthetic overall. It does give her a little more mystery and does make her a little more interesting, not only from a personality perspective, but also from a style perspective. But I am obsessed with our more mature gals in the group, which are Sailor Pluto, Uranus, and Neptune. Let's talk about Sailor Pluto. I didn't really recall too much of the anime when she was visible, but she's one of those elusive characters that like you love so much and you wish she was present more, but isn't. I love her. She's feminine, she's sharp, she's also a Chanel girl, so she definitely can pull off that preppy, but she's given such strong office lady vibes. It doesn't even make any sense. Even in an episode where she wears like this all red suit, it's just like, girl is killing it. I would dare say she is easily the most fashionable Sailor Guardian out of the whole lot of them. And then when we look at Sailor Uranus and Sailor Neptune, I'm obsessed with their duality. I remember drawing all the Sailor Scouts, but I just remember when Sailor Uranus and Neptune were introduced, it was just so awesome just seeing their relationship, their dynamic. And you could tell there was already something going on there. I was like, there's something going on there with those two. I love Sailor Uranus and just how she can go from one extreme to the next, pulling off full borderline Chiba tuxedo masculine fantasy. And it's just like, she's the type of woman that I would probably be attracted to from like a queer perspective. It's just that great hybrid of femininity and masculinity is just so beautiful to me. But I just love that she can be dressed in a Versace gown just as much as Sailor Neptune, really embodying the full extent of her femininity as well. And speaking of femininity, I feel like Sailor Neptune is the most feminine character out of all of the characters. I know that Sailor Mercury has, like I mentioned, the softest aesthetic from that Otome lens, but I feel like Sailor Neptune is the mature, fully manifested ethereal potential that maybe a Sailor Mercury could have. Just with that like wavy hair and like mermaid-esque vibe that she gives off, such a great balance and contrast to the more rugged and rigidity that Sailor Uranus has. We did it! The Sailor Moon video is finally done. I thoroughly enjoyed this video despite how much I let it get away from me. I loved just unpacking it all from this lens, and I just felt like my passion for the anime really came through. So I hope you felt that and enjoyed going through this experience with me just as much as I enjoyed experiencing it with you. And of course, there's more videos to come. Y'all already know I'm infrequent. I'm trying my best to be more consistent, but I just need to get all the right elements and energy lined up in order to keep delivering such strong content. But I really appreciate your viewership and you taking the time to watch as always. And until the next video, I'll talk to you later.